Hi there, welcome back to Hydroponics Daily. Today is the episode that a lot of people have been waiting for, and that is the expose on silicon fertilizers. What's in them and what do they really contain? What do they do? So we have analyzed 3 products from the market and we've looked at what their actual silicon content is. I'll then go on to talk about when I would use each of those products. And then I'll then go and bust the big myth that where it comes to silicon fertilizer that a lot of people have been arguing about on social media. And I will tell you that it's absolute, complete nonsense and people need to stop talking about it. So first of all, the 3 products we analysed were Eutrema's own Sea-Silica. It's an organic silicon product. So we know what goes in there. So it's a good base reference point. So that's our own in-house one. We don't sell it into the hydroponics industry. It's mainly for lawn care. So that's a good one that we don't sell it into hydro. Then we've got Shogun, which is a UK brand, and they've got a silicon product. And we've got GrowGenius, and that is a different product. It's based on the silicon that is dissolved in synthetic solvents like ethanol. And they all claim certain silicon contents. So what we did is we put them into the lab and we analysed their silica content. So silica content, like the sand in the beach, you can easily analyse that by just drying the samples off. So over a few days, we dried them right down to see if they contain the silica and therefore the silicon content that they claim to. So drum roll, please. The Eutrema product contained just over the amount we declare on the label, which is what you want. The Shogun product contained significantly more than it claimed on the label, which was not hard because it was only 1.4%. So if I work for Shogun, I go back and look at my specs from the raw materials I'm buying in and just check you've got your sums right on that one, because you've actually got a more concentrated product than you state. Not as powerful as Eutrema's Sea-Silica one, but it's good up there. It's good, very good value for money. Okay, and then the GrowGenius. This too contained the same amount of silicon that it declared, just slightly over, again, what you would want. So on the bottle, it says, and it's a very small bottle, it says it contains 19% silicon, and that's what we found. So there you go, nothing major of an issue there. So when would I use the different products? I would use Shogun's a really good product for if you're a beginner hydroponic product grower, because you're not going to overdose on it because it's a lower concentration. It means it's easier to dilute, and you're not going to mess. The problem with silicon products is they break down over time in the fertigation solution. That's what you want to happen, but it can raise your EC levels over a 24-hour, 48-hour period. And so Shogun's a really good product for adding to your fertigation tank if you're new to hydroponics and you don't use a super really strong product. The Eutrema product I would use if I'm an organic grower, because it's the only one that's certified for organic use. And the GrowGenius product I would use if I was really struggling with pH, because the Eutrema product and the Shogun product, which I believe is based on potassium silicate, just like the Eutrema product, Sea-Silica, whereas the GrowGenius product doesn't raise the pH when you add it. So it's a great product where if you're struggling with pH. Now, if you're using gold leaf in the US or liquid gold, as it's called in the UK, you can add either any of these products and it wouldn't take the pH out of the sweet spot. So don't worry about that. I would also use the GrowGenius product if I was on a golf course and I was struggling with pH. There in golf courses and sports turf, it's one of the few situations where you don't want to be raising the pH because you get disease problems there. They want to keep it acidic, whereas in most farming situations, you actually don't mind raising the pH. That's why you lime soils when you're farming. So each one has their own use, and the analysis was good, so nothing major there. However, now we come to the big reveal, the big problem with hydroponics, and that is that everyone has become obsessed with the term monosilicic acid. Monosilicic acid is the form of silicon that your plants absorb silicon by. Okay? It's a small molecule with one silicon atom. Whereas potassium silicate is a polymer. And so certain companies have been making a big deal that they contain monosilicic acid. And one of them is GrowGenius. And they've been claiming on the front of this bottle 40% monosilicic acid. You know, it's not great, what really is an issue there is that GrowGenius social media have been calling out other brands like Power SI and things like this, and doesn't sit well with me, that one, because no product contains monosilicic acid. They all contain silicon, and GrowGenius contains polymerized silicon. Now, it doesn't contain potassium silicate, but if you look on the safety data sheet, which is freely available on the website, you'll see it does contain a range of silicon polymers. So tetraethyl silicate, polysiloxane, ethyl polysilicate. These are all the active ingredients in GrowGenius. So these are not monosilicic acid. And just like the potassium silicates, they break down to form monosilicic acid in water. So GrowGenius will form monosilicic acid when it's added to the fertigation tank, but so will Shogun's product, and so will the Eutrema Sea-Silica and all the other silicon products. If it was to contain monosilicic acid in its true form, it would be weak as piss, because monosilicic acid is not soluble in high enough concentrations. That's why we use polymerized versions. That's a very good reason for using polymerized versions. So if everyone could stop using the term monosilicic acid, that would be fantastic. If everybody could stop slagging off everyone else's silicon product in the hydroponic industry, that would be great. There's a lot of bad blood at the moment in the UK hydroponic industry. We need a bit of peace and love. And so everyone just chill out, stop using the term monosilicic acid. Let's have a paradigm shift away from this term, okay? And GrowGenius claim 40% monosilicic acid. But if all of their silicon was as monosilicic acid, it would actually be 67% monosilicic acid. Because if you take 19% silicon and then convert that by looking at the molecular weight of monosilicic acid, then that would actually equate to 67% monosilicic acid. So where they've come, it's actually 42 or 45% silica is what it is, just as the Eutrema product, ours is 12.6, and the Shogun's is actually 9% silica. Well, that's what we found. So yeah, there you go. That's the results of our test. In summary, all the products contain what they say they do. The Shogun product actually contains more than it says it's going to. And then the key takeaway home message here, and also the second takeaway message is, if you're struggling with pH, GrowGenius is a good product. If you're in a golf course, if you're organic, use Eutrema. And if you're a hydroponic grower who's looking for an easy to use product, then the Shogun's one. I know a lot about all silicons because I've been making them for a long time. And I was actually asked by Orion FT, who are the original manufacturers of the GrowGenius product, to make it for them about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, about 7 years ago now. And I turned them down because I didn't want to be working with ethanol. You need specialist equipment to be working with ethanol, spark-proof equipment. So I know it's a good product. I know it's hard to make. So I'm not, saying it's a bad product, because I know it's a good product. And I know Engage Agro, who are the people who buy it off Orion FT, they've got some good products for arable crops and sports turf. And then, so yeah, I know the whole supply chain. So that's an interesting one. And we've had a few issues with Eutrema, with people in the hydroponic industry, bad mouthing us in other areas this week, and they don't actually realize that we supply a lot of their manufacturers' raw materials. So yeah, it's been interesting in hydroponics. There's a lot of drama in hydroponics this week in the UK, and so yeah, and that's not even the biggest drama of the week, which I can't even talk about. But the people behind GrowGenius have had a lot of good marketing from another aspect of that this week. Should we say invoices on eBay? That's all I'm going to say. They've got a lot to thank us for this week. So if everyone could just stop saying monosilicic acid and just talk about silicon, then everything would be fine and dandy. Everyone's product contains the right amount of silicon that it says it does. Okay, and they all break down to form monosilicic acid. So let's not have anyone slagging anyone else's product off online. Okay? If anyone wants to come back at me and say I've got this wrong, then I'm more than happy. This is only my opinion. If you think there's some other silicon technology I have ignored, then I'm more than happy to do a follow-up. Okay? So silicon fertilizers. As a repeat, they all contain what they say they do. The ethanol synthetic solvent ones are good for when you don't want to check the pH. The more dilute versions are good if you want good control over your fertigation solution. And Eutrema have got an organic one. There's no such thing as a monosilicic acid concentrate. They all break down to form monosilicic acid. And just check your calculations, everyone. Shogun, check your silica content and your silica on your specs. And yeah, if GrowGenius want to tell me where the 40% monosilicic acid comes from, I'd be interested to know that. Okay. Until tomorrow, that's been Hydroponics Daily. Goodbye.